health in younger people is a very serious issue.
So you're going to talk to our Senko to find out more.
So what are your views on mental health?
Obviously, as a Senko in charge of pastoral and social and emotional mental health, I think it's really important that we look after mental health of all people.
Do you think that there is enough awareness for mental health, and do you try and do anything to raise awareness for it?
It's improving, but there still needs to be more awareness. I think there's been a lot of stigmas attached to mental health, and so I'm constantly striving to raise awareness. It is an illness, it's something that can't be seen, but it's still there.
Yeah. If you could change one of the misconceptions about mental illnesses, which one would you change?
I think it's the fact that people say, oh, they're a nutter, they're a psycho, and the fact that people are worried to come forward about mental health because of that. So it's changing the views of society that actually it's nothing to be scared of. It's something that a lot of us will experience, will either have in our own lifetimes or will know someone that have in their lifetime. I think it's 1 in 4 possibly people that at some point in their life can suffer depression or another mental illness. So it's to change that view of people being scared to come forward if they have got problems.
Do you think society will ever adapt to learning about other mental illnesses?
Yes, hopefully. There's lots of things in the press at the moment about mental health. You might have seen, particularly with child and adolescent mental health. So the funding around that as well, and I think it has to start at that young age as well. So it's not just something that happens in adulthood, it can happen as young as children in primary schools.
Yeah. Do you think that there is enough support out there for people who have mental health issues?
No. Short answer is no. And that's probably mainly due to funding. There are some brilliant organisations that support people, but finding those and accessing those is really difficult, and the thresholds that you have to meet to gain that support are sometimes so high that if there was that first line intervention for people that needed it in the first instance, it might not get to be so severe. So not at the moment, but once again I'm hoping it's something. I know the government is putting a lot of money into mental health services, especially for children and young people, so I'm hoping that it continues to improve.
Do you think that the media should take a bigger interest in mental health and specifically in young people?
Yeah, and I think they're already starting to do that. As I said, because the government have made it a priority, they're slowly starting to realise that they need to do something about it. I don't want it to become too much, because if it becomes a headline every day, then that becomes futile and it stops having such a big impact. But it needs to be, continue to be high profile and up there, if nothing else, to keep the funding coming in as well.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
That was our interview with our Senko, Mrs. Moore.
Here's some facts about mental health issues in young people.
Around 20% of the world's children and adolescents have mental disorders or problems.
8,700 children aged 5 to 10 are seriously depressed.
1 in 10 children and young people aged 5 to 16 suffer from a diagnosable mental health disorder.
About 290,000 children and young people have an anxiety disorder.
The number of young people aged 15 to 16 with depression nearly doubled between the 1980s and 2000s.
Stigmas and discrimination against patients and families prevent people from seeking mental health care.
1 in 10 young people have a mental health diagnosis.
Nearly half of children and young people have been bullied in school at some point in their lives.
70% of children and young people who experience a mental health problem have not had appropriate interventions at a sufficiently early age.
1 in 12 young people harm themselves.
1 in 4 teenagers experience suicidal thoughts.
It is thought that in the UK, 1 in 15 young people have self-harmed, on average 2 in every secondary school classroom.
This has been our report on raising awareness for mental health issues in young people.
By Jane, Emily and Jasmine.